Don't miss the Morning Brew with Brooks Brewer, the Brewmeister, weekdays at 7 a.m. here on KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
SJ, welcome to Muskogee Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. Ische, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jahu Jifkidos, Muskogee Radio, Mabu Hedge Dewedskis. Good morning, welcome to our program on this rainy Okmulgee day here today. If you're coming down to visit the council house, it's going to be wet. We've got a lot of stuff to share with you this morning. We'll be talking about a couple of different events. It is an observance of child abuse, would you call it month? And we've got a couple of staff members from the Children and Family Services office coming in to talk about what they're seeing and what our tribe is going through. And then in the second half of our program, we are going to talk about an event that's got some serious overtones, but is also fun too. It's called Creekchella, and we'll wonder where they got the name and what that means. But first of all, we want to welcome to our program Stephanie Ellis and Michelle Bender. Thank you all for making time to come in today. We certainly appreciate you joining us on this little soggy morning, so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to talk about your work this month, but first of all, let's get kind of a capsule idea of what your office is and what it does and who it serves. Stephanie?
Yeah, sure. So our office is Children and Family Services, and our mission is to provide services that are designed to work with parents in the reunification process to correct conditions that led to the removal of some of our children.
And Michelle, I understand you are a caseworker who meets these people firsthand. Is that correct?
I work with the foster care and adoption aspect of the Children and Family Services. And so what we do is go out and visit with prospective families that are looking to either be a relative that can take care of a child who's been brought into custody, or somebody who is just wanting to foster a child, or somebody who is wanting to adopt.
Now this is a tough subject to talk about. I know we do it every year, and the problem still doesn't seem to go away. It sticks with us. But Stephanie, could you maybe give us an idea of what the tribe is dealing with as far as child abuse among its membership?
Yeah, so unfortunately we do experience some of our children that are going through some difficulties with their families, but that could be a number of difficulties that they're experiences through their families as far as generation. So it could be, just a young mother that's not well informed or have the parenting skills, adequate parenting skills to care for their children, or there can be some substance abuse issues that can lead to the physical or sexual or just emotional abuse of our children.
So a lot of the causes are still the same. Unfortunately, there are some new ideas that have come along that have affected our people. Like the drugs have changed.
Right.
It used to be, I guess, a lot of alcohol, but now we're getting to see crack and opioids figure into what we're dealing with now.
Yes.
A lot of meth.
A lot of meth?
Yeah, a lot of meth.
I don't know that anyone's really, I guess, taken a survey or a real close look at that particular problem. Are there any numbers or anything that you all have to deal with that you're aware of that kind of gives us a feel for how big the problem is, or is there progress? I don't know. If you don't have anything specifically, maybe perhaps a guesstimate.
I really don't have that guesstimate. I know that our director, Kimmy Wynn Hummingbird, has been involved in some meetings involving the opioid use and how prevalent it is today.
Yeah, and as much as we would like to kind of turn our backs on it, it is there. I mean, we can't escape the fact that young little kids are being affected by that. In dealing with a case of child abuse, if there is perhaps an example that you can share without any names, of course, what kind of situations do you have to deal with when you're at a point where you're looking at perhaps removing a child from custody from its parents?
Oftentimes, what the workers are running into are neglect due to the fact that the parents are abusing either alcohol or substances. Oftentimes you'll see that the families are neglecting to either feed their children or care for them medically or physically to meet the needs that the child requires. They get high on whatever substance they choose and often forget to just meet the basic needs of their children.
So many times we hear and read in the news locally that situation like that, the parents are partying all the time, they're spending all their money on their drug of choice. Police or social workers will go check out the refrigerator and there's a couple of empty bottles of beer and maybe an empty bucket of what used to be chicken, and there's nothing else in there for the kids. Is that typical, or is it
Yes.
unusual?
No, that's fairly typical for instances that the workers are running into, as far as coming into a home that has conditions that don't meet safety standards. The home is dirty or filthy, and like you said, there's no food in the refrigerator or the cupboards.
And then sometimes they just don't recognize that because that's what they're used to. So they don't know any different at times. And so it's just like for the program that I work for, which is promoting safe and stable families, in the event that there is a referral that comes in, it may just need a little assistance, providing education to parents. So, and that's what we do in our program is provide, parenting education, budgeting, interpersonal skills, just a lot of education to families to help them improve their conditions.
If you get to a point where you're considering removal of this child from its family, then is that, I guess, an extreme? I mean, it's like there's no other choice that you have. There's nothing that you can offer that would prevent a breakup.
Well, if it's beyond of what we're able to provide, so CPS, our Child Protection Services Program, which is our family protection team, they will investigate the nature of those conditions. So if it is beyond what we can provide as far as providing interventions, then they'll have to complete their investigation and probably look at removal if that's what's necessary. But then they will, work with the family to hopefully reunify the family at some point.
So if you're going to place a child with someone else, do you look to the family, like relatives, first of all? How does that work?
Whenever a situation arises that a child is going to be removed from their family, the first option is always another family member, because family eases the child's transition from being removed from mom and dad, and so a familiar face is always a lot more conducive to the child's mental and well-being. So relatives are always looked at first, and if a relative is appropriate, then the child will be placed there. However, if a relative is not appropriate, then unfortunately the child will have to go into a non-relative foster home.
Right, and I understand you're looking for places for them to go.
That is correct.
It's always a challenge.
Yes, it's always a challenge. Currently, we have roughly 14 certified foster homes with the Muskogee Creek Nation. And so as of March the 26th, we had 306 children in state custody. And so there is a difference between state custody and tribal custody. I think within tribal custody, we have currently 7 children. Is that correct, Stephanie?
Well, I think there was 10 cases and 15 children in custody.
So most of our tribal children we have placements for. It's our state custody children that we usually do not have adequate amounts of foster homes available. So we're always looking to increase our numbers.
Do you work well with state agencies? Is there any jurisdictional headbutting going on, or is it fairly cooperative?
Our unit works across the state. So as long as you live within the borders of Oklahoma, then we are able to certify you. So we do not just stay within our jurisdictional boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the flip side of the coin, does the state recognize your abilities and resources and come to you to perhaps find a solution for a problem?
Yes. Almost daily we receive emails and notifications from the state agencies, requesting if we have any availabilities for foster homes. Mm-hmm. And we work fairly well with all the state agencies.
That's good to hear, even in their budget crisis.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if we hope someone out there is listening and considering becoming a foster family, how does one qualify? What do you need to look at? And I presume there's a series of checks that you guys, your office undertakes.
Yes. All applicants must be over the age of 21. They must be enrolled in a federally recognized tribe. And they must live within the boundaries of the state of Oklahoma, not just within our jurisdictional boundaries. They must be able to pass a series of backgrounds, and those backgrounds take about 2 to 6 weeks to get through. And then they must have financial independence, adequate shelter, and in overall good health.
So they have to be a stable family, mm-hmm. a nice roof over their head. The income level might not matter at this point as long as it's a good home, right?
As long as there's enough income coming in to sustain the home without assistance, that's what we look for. So as long as a family has more income coming in than going out, they qualify.
Now, you mentioned background checks, and we hear that a lot on many programs. What is involved? Who does the looking, and what are they looking for?
Well, whenever an applicant applies to become a foster resource for the Muskogee Creek Nation, what we do is send off their backgrounds. There's a series of forms inside the application, and so we'll look at your OSBI, your DPS, which is just looking at your criminal background, and then we look at a CANIS, which looks at child abuse. It's a child abuse network that we look at to see if there's any backgrounds that involve child abuse, and then we also look at the various sexual assault backgrounds as well, and then we do fingerprints to just make sure that an applicant has not been in any other state and committed any other crimes. And so once we verify that there are no crimes committed against the applicant, or that the applicant has committed, then we can proceed forward. And that, like I said, that takes usually 4 to 6 weeks to complete. And just because you may have a speeding ticket or a DUI from 10 years ago does not disqualify you. We have a denial process, and it has to be something of aggressive nature. You have to have had assault and battery or something along those lines for us to automatically decline you.
That's where I was going to go with my next question. So something like a domestic assault would disqualify?
Correct, especially if it's a felony conviction.
Yikes. Yeah, you don't want your kids going to
That's right.
crazy, ridiculous places like that. Now, if you could kind of give me an idea of what you can offer in terms of resources, are there like a list of programs or some way to categorize the services that you provide?
Well, for our services, if they come to our unit, we do seek outside resources. So that could be within our tribe, like social services, TNF, or behavioral health, because a lot of our clients are struggling with other issues as far as behavior. They may have some depression or anxiety issues that kind of contribute to their behaviors as far as how they care for the children. So if they're not well, then they're not going to be well enough to care for their children sometimes. But we will seek within our tribe. Then if we're not able to obtain no services for our families, then we will seek outside services. And it just depends on where they're located within our jurisdiction. Will depend on where we can refer them to.
Now, if a child is successfully placed, what kinds of things would you expect from a parent? Say it's a Creek family, does tradition work into this at all? Mostly nutrition and adequate housing and clothing, education, I presume, would be important. So which of those factors, or if all of them, figure into what you want to see in parental care?
All of those aspects are very important to the well-being of children. It's important that we keep our traditional aspects within our Muskogee Creek children. And so, yes, we definitely want our applicants to be involved traditionally, whether it be ceremonial or with our churches. We also want to make sure that they can pass forward some of our traditions, whether that be through ceremonial or through going to church, or whether to just teach them our traditional foods. And that's an important aspect of our culture and heritage.
Yeah, give them a good spiritual base, and then if they hear the phrase Mvskoke, they're going to know what it means, right? Has let me ask you about your track record. I guess how many kids have you had to deal with? How many successful placements, perhaps, and how many that were rejected? Do you have numbers on those kinds of things?
As far as placement, I guess that would be foster care and adoptions. But so the state actually reported, as far as referrals, was for the fiscal year 17 was 1,046, and that was for 9 of the 11 counties in our jurisdiction. But within our tribe, about 6 months ago, our tribal reunification and permanency program served a total of 22 children. Our state reunification inside our jurisdiction served 254. Our state reunification outside of our 11 counties served about 120 children. But more recent, for the last month of March, our CPS unit was working a total of 29 investigations with 7 children in custody. Our tribal reunification and permanency has had 10 cases with 15 children in custody. Our state reunification and permanency had 193 cases with 343 children in custody. And promoting safe and stable families had 31 families that we were working with, and then foster and adoptive homes currently have, well, at the time, I believe 39 homes to meet the needs.
Currently in foster care, we have 14 open homes, and then within those homes, we have placed 23 children.
That's, I know I'm always discouraged when I hear numbers run into hundreds, but is that average? I mean, if there is such a thing. Any way to make comparisons, either statewide or nationally, or even tribally with other tribes? Has anyone ever done that kind of thing? Give us a feel for how we're doing as stacked up against, say, the Cherokees or someone else.
I do not have any other statistical information for the other tribes within Oklahoma, but I know that within the Muskogee Creek Nation, Just in the past couple of months, I want to say in February, our numbers were up to like 375 approximately. And in March, the end of March, our numbers had dropped to 306. So, I mean, that's an improvement.
Yeah.
It's not exactly where we want to be, but it is an improvement.
Do you all attend national conventions where on this topic where these kinds of things get discussed?
I have not.
I have not. Usually our director and our tribal reunification program manager attends.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We'll have to get them in here and put them on the spot. Well, what I was after there is, first of all, how do we stack up against other tribes? And the problems you encounter, are those the same that you would hear from any other tribe, say, the Lakotas or the Comanches or the Navajos? I mean, the things that you're having to deal with, do you at least think perhaps they're the same kinds of problems?
From the Oklahoma Department of Human Services website, we gather a lot of statistical information. And so approximately 10,000 children last year, I think it was probably mid 9,500 children last year were taken into custody. And then that's all the way across the spectrum, all ethnic backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So of that, nearly 10,000 children, we had roughly 350 on average. So I think comparatively against the Oklahoma statistics, Muskogee Creek Nation is doing very well, although having 350 approximate children is still too many to have in a system.
The future, I think, this is where I'd like to go next. If we can, first of all, talk about the kind of activities that you all put on, any kinds of public meetings or seminars or involvement with other child care kind of things that might offer something to kids and parents and some educational process. I mean, what all on your agenda, I suppose?
Well, for promoting safe and stable families, to raise awareness about child abuse prevention, we secluded that to April, basically. But the activities that we had for this month, on April 3rd, we had a build a blue ribbon tree. And so the blue ribbons that is the international sign for child abuse prevention, which serves as a constant reminder that all of us have a responsibility in helping to protect our children. So the number of ribbons that we placed on our tree this year was 350. Last year we placed 371 ribbons. So it did decrease some, but like Michelle had mentioned, it does fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
And our other event that we had was Wear Blue. And that's to help support children affected by abuse or neglect throughout our nation. And then our upcoming event will be this Friday. It will be held at the Mound, so that will be our child abuse prevention event. And that will start at 10:30. Our guest speaker will be Mary Ellen Stockett. She actually joined the OU Children's Physicians at the OU Medical Center in July of 2013, where she now provides medical evaluations of suspected victims of child maltreatment. And I think she's going to be speaking on child sexual abuse.
Gosh. Yeah. Are there warning signs that you might look for or someone could become aware of that might say that this child is in danger of some sort of abuse? I mean, what kinds of things might tip you off or interest you in following up? I mean, I don't know if you look for them or they just sort of pop up, but what would those signs be?
Well, it could be from a range of things. Maybe you might see a child that's unsupervised, maybe in a street or something. But if it's excessive, and in the state of Oklahoma, we're all mandated reporters. So even if you have a concern, you're encouraged to call and make that report. Or it could be you do see some bruises on a child that doesn't look like it could be just from, playing, or it could, if you're just not sure. It's always to be better, on a safe side than not. But definitely, if you have any concerns, to report those to either, they can always call our office from 8 to 5, and that number is 918-732-7869. Or if it's after hours, call Light Horse, but I think it's just calling the main number, right? The 918-732-7800.
That is correct.
Or always the state line as well, which that number is 1-800-522-3511. So if you ever suspected or if there's any concerns for that child or children, they are encouraged to call.
Well, luckily, I think many of these cases get spotted by teachers. Bless their hearts. And bruises or something like that. But what about malnutrition? I mean, does that fit into what you're looking at? If the poor little kid just doesn't seem to be as heavy as she should be at a particular age?
A lot of times when our foster families, first take in a child, they'll report to us that the child's hoarding things. So that's one of the things that you might also look for if a child, especially if you're a teacher or in the public setting, if a child is kind of excessively hoarding something as far as food, if they're, I'm going to take this home and eat it later, that may be problematic to the family not having enough at home, and could be an indicator of neglect as far as meeting nutritional needs.
I personally had never thought about that, but I guess it's not on the top of a lot of people's mind. The child might be taking that chicken leg to eat it later, or have something to eat later, or perhaps giving it to a sibling who's also underfed. Does that kind of thing happen?
A lot of times, if you see a child that is doing that, just simply asking, are you taking that home later, or is that something that you're going to eat in just a minute? Just kind of asking those simple questions will give you a better indication of, oh, no, I don't have anything to eat when I get home. And then you'll kind of know, because a lot of times children will hoard, candies and cookies and so forth just to have to eat, but it's the children that you're seeing that are taking multiple and multiple and multiple items, and and they're not doing it in an open fashion. They're doing it in a little bit of a sneaky manner. I'm taking this one, I'm going to put it in my backpack, I'm going to go back and get another one, put it in my backpack, and then you'll kind of see the child is demonstrating, I'm not going to have enough later, so I'm going to gather what I can now.
Yeah, that's sad. I guess in the last couple of minutes here, it sounds like there might be occasions when this situation gets to an extreme, where you might have to call in Light Horse or something. Does that happen very often, where you see things get to a criminal point? Or is it, pretty much not?
I'm pretty sure
it does happen.
Yeah. But like whenever with our program, if we our CPS unit refers a family over to our program, well, if the family is not willing to participate in the program, or if they're not home, or they decline our services, then we have to refer that family back to CPS, because our services are voluntary. So they are not required, even though they are being referred.
And CPS is Child Protective Service?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, we have a little bit of time, just under a minute here. Is there anything else that you might want to add and re-emphasize perhaps from our discussion, or advice you might want to leave with parents or people who are caring for children?
Yeah, so our goal is to provide those services to families that, as far as education, to help them gain the additional skills. So if there is ever any concern about child abuse, please make that report it doesn't have to be excessive, just a concern. But with that, we do offer, our preventative services too, so that we can assist a family to help their family remain intact to prevent that removal to beginning.
We would hope that people would be wise and take advantage of those possibilities. Right. All right, finally, contact number again. I know you gave it to us once, but if you would repeat your phone number so people could get a hold of you.
Yeah, so for Children and Family Services for the Muskogee Creek Nation is 918-732-7869.
Okay. Well, we'd like to thank our guests here this morning, Stephanie Ellis and Michelle Bender from our Child and Family Services Office Administration. We appreciate your taking time to talk about this very serious subject. And if there's anything we can ever do to assist you in that, please let us know, and we'll be more than happy to help out.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay. Let's take a break here, and we'll be back, and let's talk about Creekchella. Now, that sounds a lot real familiar with something that we are familiar with from music festivals, but it's not quite the same. So let's take a pause here, and we'll be back with more Muskogee Radio.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Muskogee Radio here on The Brew. Gary Fife Jahujifkidas. Here in the studio with me is Rena Hernandez. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Gary.
Thank you for coming down in this soggy morning.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
The event we've been seeing and hearing about lately is using the phrase Creekchella. That kind of reminds me of that music festival in California, Coachella. Is that right? Is that where that came from? What is the origin of Creekchella?
Yeah, Gary, you're exactly right. That's where it came from. So this year, our department, I actually work with the Suicide Prevention Department under Behavioral Health for Creek Nation, and we have partnered with Muskogee Youth Council and also with the Muskogee Tourism and Recreation Department, and we are hosting our first wellness music festival to raise awareness for mental health, especially for youth. And so what we're able to do was partner with Youth Services Council and use their youth to kind of create the direction, so that way it would be something that would engage the youth in our area to attend. So we definitely wanted to have them involved heavily in the promotion and the creation of this event.
The idea, of course, has a very serious message and mission, but you're using the fun aspect also to draw more people to it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we have to play on that fun factor. A lot of times when we do talk about mental health or suicide, it's not an easy subject to approach. It's pretty heavy, and a lot of times it does deter people from receiving the education and resources that they could potentially use to help someone else who may need those resources. So with mental health, 1 in 5 Americans are affected by mental health, and so it's very important for us to recognize those early warning signs that someone may be experiencing mental health issues, and to also know about resources available to help them.
As with all of our guests, I always kind of like to get a feel for the size of the problem. Mm-hmm. Has your office done anything like that, or are you aware of anyone who's maybe done some statistical review of the problems that these young people are facing?
I think as far as on a state level and a national level, and currently that's what one of our suicide prevention grants is working on, is that surveillance piece. So that way we do have accurate information regarding mental health within our tribe and within our communities. So that's an ongoing effort that we're working on currently. So that way we do have up-to-date statistical information to be able to portray how big this problem is. But like I had mentioned, a lot of times with 1 in 5 Americans suffering from a mental health illness, a lot of those are usually undiagnosed and untreated. And so people are kind of living their lives, going through or experiencing those different things associated with those problems when there is effective treatment available to help them. So.
How would you define the phrase mental health? I mean, what kind of problems are included when we talk about a general topic like that? How does that break down, perhaps?
As far as mental health, just your general well-being. So just like Stephanie had mentioned earlier when we were talking about the child abuse prevention, the same thing. So anyone who is suffering with a mental health issue that does restrict or change some of their behavior, the behavioral aspects of that individual, and also affects their ability to function in daily activities. So they may struggle in various areas depending on the severity of their mental health issue.
Well, I think we're all aware of phrases like depression, bipolar. Are these the kind of things that we're looking at? Is that involved in what we want to discuss here?
Absolutely. Depression, anxiety, a lot of those things, we see that a lot, especially since we do work in more of the crisis response field. And so a lot of times what we notice is that people, we definitely want to be able to intervene whenever it is something that's not at a crisis level. So that's what we're looking at now, is more upstream prevention. So trying to be able to identify those individuals and refer them and get them the treatment that they need, so that way they don't kind of snowball into a crisis situation whenever there is that help that's available. So, and there are different techniques that you can use, different wellness tips, and that's really the goal of this event, is to provide that fun environment, but also to be able to supply the community and the youth and their families with the support and resources that are available, and to also educate them on the warning signs that they may look for within their loved one that may be suffering from a mental illness.
Now, I would presume there are different levels of the problem, like various intensities, if you will, of depression.
Correct.
Very light, very heavy, and
right
in between. Now, the kinds of things that we often hear is, well, so many of the, let's say, famous people that we have been aware of who've committed suicide went through this incredible depression. I think the actor Vern Troyer passed away recently, and the word depression was discussed in his death. Although we can't, pin it down, but are there things we can look for, perhaps warning signs, as you say, that might be those red flags?
Absolutely, and they vary depending on the diagnosis. So, but any type of mood change that you may notice within an individual, any unusual behaviors, if you notice that person may be feeling disconnected or withdrawing from certain activities, or even an increased sensitivity to things. A lot of times when someone is suffering from a mental illness and they don't really understand what's going on, they may become very aggressive, and sometimes that's just their way of trying to cope with all the things that they're dealing with. So a lot of times it's definitely our responsibility to be more compassionate when we are dealing with people, because unless you've been in that situation, you don't know what it's like or what they're going through. So you definitely want to be as empathetic as you can and understanding, and so that way they do have that support system in place and can talk to you and communicate to you, and you're able to be that lifeline for that person and connect them and potentially save their lives. Like you had mentioned, a lot of times some of these mental illnesses, when they do go undiagnosed and untreated, and people are kind of developing those unhealthy coping mechanisms surrounding just to get through, and that may be with substance use or substance abuse and other risky behaviors that they may be engaging in. A lot of times, if they're able to get the treatment or the help that they need, they're able to live a good life, and they're able to prosper and develop and grow. But a lot of times people don't always seek treatment, and that's in part due to the stigma that surrounds mental health. a lot of people are afraid of how that's going to be portrayed or how people are going to perceive them if they're maybe say that they do have anxiety or maybe they are suffering with depression, and they look at it now as maybe a form of weakness when really it's something that's out of their control. And we all need to support everyone who may be suffering with those conditions.
I've heard that discussion with people I know and medical professionals. And one of the things that caught my ear was that sometimes folks who are affected don't even know it. Like you could be dealing with some level of depression and not be aware of it.
Absolutely. And a lot of times people, you don't always know because it does kind of sneak up on you. And the more that it goes untreated or then the more severe that it can become. And a lot of times people don't, they'll kind of wait to seek services when they, until it gets really bad and they are in a crisis situation to where they really don't have anywhere to turn. And we're always grateful that they do turn to us in those situations, but unfortunately that's not always the case. And so that's why we are focusing a lot of our efforts on education and making sure that everyone in the community is aware of the warning signs or things to look for to help that loved one get through those times and to be able to refer them on to those treatment services. And I know, especially for our youth, this is a huge problem. We actually are we are expanding our behavioral health department to make sure that it is more. We are providing more youth services, and we do have a child psychiatrist on staff now. So we're doing as much as we can to address this issue.
As with every program, I always ask for numbers. Sometimes they're available, sometimes they're not. But in this case, are there numbers? I mean, we were able to get families and specific quotas, or not quotas, but groups, numbers, phrases that kind of quantify that. Is that sort of thing available through what you do?
It is, and it is an ongoing effort to expand our surveillance to be able to provide those accurate numbers. And what we always say to people who are looking for statistics, those statistics are always available, but right now, when you're looking at mental health, what we really focus on in my department is whenever it does lead to a suicide death. And so, especially within our population, suicide is the leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34. And in Oklahoma, it's actually the second leading cause of death for Native American males. And that just in itself shows that this is a huge problem in our state, because we know that a lot of these suicide deaths go unreported or misreported. So the numbers that we have just show that, I mean, this is a huge problem, and it's going to take all of us together, working together to help save lives.
This is one of those kinds of things that happens behind closed doors, shall we say? Is that still pretty much what you have to deal with? People don't want to talk about it, or they don't want people to know that this happened in their family. Is that an obstacle?
Absolutely. It doesn't happen all the time, and it just varies between that family. But a lot of times, whenever a suicide death does occur, there's a lot of emotion that surrounds that situation. And with us, we just have to be very careful about how it's portrayed, especially in the media. So making sure that we are being very careful with our messaging and with our articles and things, and the way that we're portraying that actual event. And so a lot of times you may not know about the actual occurrences that may be happening in the community, and that can be a good thing, because we don't want to we don't want to contribute to that problem, because a lot of times whenever you do report on a suicide death, or you do kind of promote that in the community, then it can sometimes lead to future or other suicide related deaths. So we're very careful about giving out any specific information regarding those situations, and we do try to be as respectful as we can to the families that are going through that tragic event.
Right, they've got enough pain as it is.
Absolutely. Right now, a lot of our efforts is just more focusing on is working with our Light Horse department and other police departments, and letting them know the importance of sometimes maybe a family member doesn't want to report it as a suicide, even though it was. And so letting them know that it is very important that we accurately document all of those deaths, because we're not showing the actual problem as it exists today. But just the numbers that we have and the statistics that we do have available to us shows that it is a huge problem, and a problem that we all should be helping to address.
Now, and this next question may be, it is probably kind of out of your field, but it's something that you mentioned Light Horse there. Now, I'm presuming they're very supportive of the things you do. But are we running into situations within our tribe of people, young people, old, whoever, wanting to involve the police in this situation? What do they call it? Suicide by cop. Firearms, I know is a leading, I don't want to say cause, but a method, perhaps.
Right.
Some lonely, depressed young person is sitting in a bedroom with a pistol or something. Saying,
Absolutely, and that's one of the biggest strategies when helping to prevent suicide, is helping to eliminate that means that someone may be using to complete or to die by suicide. So that may be whether you're removing access to lethal weapons, whether that be a firearm, whether that be medication, and even alcohol.
Yeah.
Alcohol is now one of the biggest means, because a lot of times whenever someone is under the influence, they're not thinking rationally, and they're more likely to engage in self-destructive behaviors or even to attempt suicide.
Yeah. Well, now that's pretty heavy discussion we've had so far, but so let's kind of change things up here a bit. Now, the Creekchella Festival has a number of activities and opportunities for young people to become involved with, come out and play, if you will.
Absolutely, and that's kind of our goal. So we want to definitely mix the two, making sure that we're providing that education and resources, but also the fun to the families. And so what we have now, or what we've, since through our partnership with Muskogee Youth Services and Tourism and Recreation, we did create Creekchella, and that's what the Youth Services Council, that's the name that they came up with, going off of the really popular Coachella Festival that I think just happened. So
hopefully no headdresses there.
Yeah, hopefully not. But this event will take place on May 5th, and it will be at the Muskogee Dome here in Okmulgee. Registration for the event will begin at 1 o'clock, and the first 500 to register will receive a free t-shirt and a wellness bag and kit. And so the event will feature various activities throughout the day. We're really focusing on those protective factors, because with suicide prevention and mental health, a lot of in the past we would really focus on the risk factors that are happening. What's happening with the family? What are some things that we can help to or that we can start to address to improve the situation for the youth? But the new research is showing that protective factors are actually the way to go. And so addressing those through providing healthy connections, healthy activities, mentors, positive connections, those are all the things that are shown to help alleviate some of those symptoms, or to help that individual. So at this festival, we're going to have various youth vendors, food vendors. We're going to have resource vendors available, and also have multiple physical wellness activities throughout the day, including stickball. They're also having a kickball tournament and archery. We're going to have yoga throughout the day, and also collaborative art. We partnered with the Grief Center, and so they do provide creative expression workshops for us. So they're going to come down and help us out with that event as well. So we have several people, and this is all possible from all of our great sponsors. So we're very thankful to all of them and to our partners. So.
One of the flyers I was looking at was about a kickball tournament that you mentioned there.
Yes.
This is kind of an activity to draw people together, cooperate as a team, cheer on your side, this kind of thing. Why kickball? I mean, there are lots of different kinds of things, but you chose kickball.
Well, that's
something everybody could do, I presume.
Yes, I believe that was the intent, and that's something that we kind of left the youth council to decide what they wanted their activity to be, and that's what they chose to go with. So we definitely wanted to support them as much as possible, since it was an event that we were hoping to be led by them, and kind of using kind of their insight to direct us, because a lot of times, we come in, this is best practice, this is what we need to be doing, but at the same time, we're not getting that youth involvement. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we're meeting them where they are, and looking at events that they would actually attend, and trying to kind of bridge that gap, or melt those two together. So that way we are providing that education, but also not leaving out that fun factor to keep them involved and included in those activities and events.
Well, that's a pretty good idea there. You get
Absolutely.
a lot of folks involved in it, and you yell and scream and run around in the yard there.
Yes.
What else have you got on that agenda for the day?
So throughout the day, we do have 5 different bands that are going to be playing throughout the day with our headliner, Josh Sally. We're also going to have Calvin McGriff, Anna Jennings, Western Horn, and The Hush. So throughout the day, there's going to be various musical acts going on, and those were all selected by our Youth Services Council as well.
Me being unfamiliar with any of those names, I presume there are a lot of different musical styles.
There are, yes, ranging from rap, jazz, or indie. So it's just an array. I think they did a really good job at selecting the artists that they have lined up, and so we're really excited to be able to help them out in this event, and really proud of what they've been able to come up with, because we definitely couldn't do this on our own. And definitely a shout out to the Youth Services Council. They actually are also partnering with us. We have started a Sources of Strength program with 6 of our schools, and Youth Services Council is actually our community partner for that Sources of Strength, and that's what they do, is they focus on those healthy activities and those healthy events, and looking at changing those, looking at messages to change the community's perception surrounding mental health or surrounding self-seeking behaviors. So we're really excited about this one.
Well, I didn't see too many polkas there.
Yeah.
There's nothing against that music or anything.
Yeah.
Now, the effort to involve our young people, I think has been successful. I mean, I'm not there all the time. I don't cover a lot of what they do, but there seems to be a lot of it. And these young people seem quite enthusiastic about what they're doing. How is the situation then for our tribal youth doing? Is it better now? You're seeing more involvement and a more positive attitude? Is it reflected in anything?
Absolutely. I mean, I think with all of our all the strategies that we're implementing, we are showing that increased connection within our communities, especially within our Indian communities. We actually have 4 that we were able to award Protecting the Future mini grants to, and they're actually facilitating youth activities within their Indian communities. So right now we're kind of piloting that project, but in the hopes that this could be something that all of the Creek Nation Indian communities take on, so that way we're all doing our part in helping the youth or helping our future.
So I guess after you put this festival on, you'll kind of evaluate and see if you want to do it again.
Absolutely, and I hope that we are able to do it again. I know that this is an issue, and a lot of times it doesn't get the attention that it does need and deserve, and so we're hoping that this will help to raise some of that awareness surrounding mental health, especially for our youth population. And that's kind of where the origination of this idea came from, because we do have a lot of services available for our younger kiddos, and also for our adults and our senior service and our seniors, but we don't have a lot for that transition age, especially in this department. So that's what we definitely wanted to involve Youth Council in some of the direction here, to make sure that we're looking at it from the right angle and going about it the right way. But yeah, we definitely want to kind of highlight that this is very important, and it is sometimes a matter of life and death, and so it's very important for us to have that education and for us to know about the resources available and be able to connect people to the help that they may be needing.
I've had a couple of members of the Youth Council on the program discussing some of their projects, and I've really been impressed by their dedication. I think the connection to culture. One young man is fluent in Muskogee and leads songs and things like that. I'm going, wow, I couldn't have done that when I was a kid. So they're attracting, I think, more of a following, perhaps. I don't know. Is that true from what you've seen? Is it growing? How are they doing?
Absolutely. Anything peer-led is going to be a lot more effective than for us to come in and talk to the youth about it. They're usually more likely to listen to their peers and to receive mentorship from them. So I think that's a great strategy to really address the problem where it's at, because they're also kind of our boots on the ground to be able to recognize someone who may be needing additional services and be able to connect that person to a trusted adult to help them out. So yeah, I think they're doing a tremendous job in the communities.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about connections with the tribe? This information that I presume that you would develop in working with these young people and the ones that are your clients, is the tribe really taking notice? Is it getting real money, let's say, behind the programs you do? I mean, money where your mouth is, I think, is the phrase that I'm fumbling for. But what's been the reaction of tribal government?
I know within our health department we have received an amazing amount of support. One of the programs that we're working on actually impacts our entire health system, and that's the Zero Suicide Initiative, and that's just a standardized screening that everyone coming through the door is going to be screened and assessed, and hopefully if they are identified as someone who is in need of support services or treatment services, then they're going to receive that direct referral over to behavioral health and be able to address that situation. And especially for our youth, I know that we have another grant that we just received I want to say last summer, and so that one focuses specifically on the pediatric population. So they've already started running some of those standard screenings there to see if they are able to identify any of those warning signs that a youth may be exhibiting and may need future assistance on.
All right, well, let's go back to the top of our discussion and kind of review the logistics of this particular event, the time, place, and I presume it's free, right?
Absolutely. It's free to the community. So the date of the event will be May 5th, and it will take place at the Muskogee Dome here in Okmulgee. Registration will begin at 1 o'clock, and the event will start at 2 p.m. So we'll be giving out prizes throughout the day, including Logic concert tickets. I know that was a big feature there. And also the first 500 to register on site that day will receive a free t-shirt. We do have limited sizes available, but definitely come out, bring your families, bring the kiddos. It's going to be a really great event for everyone. And yeah.
Okay, well, free t-shirts too.
Absolutely. And if you do want more information regarding this event, please contact our department at 918-758-1930. Or if you want to contact our behavioral department, they can be reached at 918-758-1910. And just anytime that we do discuss any mental health or suicide, we definitely always want to make sure that we provide resources to the community. So if you or someone that you know may be experiencing, maybe going through any type of difficult event or may need someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and they can be reached at 1-800-273-TALK or 8255, or you can also text the crisis text line, and that's just texting CREEK, C-R-E-E-K, to 741-741.
Wonderful. Rena Hernandez, thank you so much. There's a lot of stuff to share in there.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, we were wondering about filling out the time, but it just sort of filled itself.
It just flew by.
Okay.
I have so much left to talk about.
Well, we wish you success with the program there and this event. I'm going to see if some of our Muskogee media colleagues will be out there to cover it for you. So.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Gary.
All right, good luck. All right, we'll get down to some community announcements here. A few things that we're going to try and squeeze in. First of all, we'll have graduation season coming up, and we want to remind you that if you have graduates, you want to get a profile in the tribal newspaper, that deadline is Friday, May 11th by 5 p.m. Now, it takes a while to assemble that page and put in a photo and things, so please observe that deadline. We cannot accept anything that is late, so that's the tough part. What else have we got here? Bikes and Balls, 10 to 11:30, April 27th, May 11th. Bring your kids to come play at the Dome. Play with some of our bikes, balls, and other fun stuff. So if you're interested, that's the Muskogee Dome, Claude Cox Omniplex, April 27th and May 11th from 10 to 11:30. Let's see if we can squeeze a few others in here real quick. College work experience and internship for college juniors, seniors, and graduates. Gain professional experience. So if you're interested in that, applications are accepted until the 27th. So this week is it. For more information, that's 918-732-7773. Let's see here. And Muskogee Youth Awards. Goody on them coming up. The deadline is May 18th. If you want to submit a name for consideration, please do. 918-549-2557. Well, I think that's gonna do it for us. So we need to look at getting out of here. So we'll talk at you next week. So join us again for more Muskogee Radio. You've been listening to Muskogee Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But